So first off, thank you. I appreciate everyone taking time out of your busy schedules to sit through this training today. Today's an exciting day. Today we're going to take a look at the new timesheet system that is active as of today. So um, from today going forward, this is the system you'll be logging into to do your timesheet, recording your time on a daily basis per the company policy. And I wanted to give you a walkthrough of the new system and how to record your time, as well as how a supervisor is going to approve timesheets. So the first thing I want to show you is the link on how to get to your timesheet. So the link we are going to use today is the timesheet.idsi.com link that we've used before. So when you go to this link, there'll be an additional link that says current time and expense system. As you can see, all timesheets and expenses prior to 8/1 use the old timesheet system. So from today going forward, you're going to want to do your timesheets in this new system. So I'll click on this link here, and it will navigate me to this login page. This is the home page or your login page to log into CostPoint, which actually is integrated with the new time and expense system. So we're still utilizing Deltek as our timesheet provider. And the only difference is now the timesheet system for time and expense 10 versus the old system time and expense 9. 10 is actually a part of the accounting system itself. So you're actually going to be logging into the accounting system. So your user ID, if you've not already been provided, Michael will either send it out to you or reach out to him if you need your user ID and your login information, but that should all be provided to you as of now. The username should be...
Same as the old timesheet system. It's last name dot first name.
Exactly. Your user ID is going to be your last name dot first name. Your password is going to match up with the Active Directory password that Michael's provided. And I'm going to click on this Show Additional Criteria button. The system name that we're going to be logging into is going to be IDSI. And if you'd like the browser to retain this information for you, you can always check the box down here, Remember Login Information. So once I've put in my username and my password and I've verified that I'm logging into the IDSI system, I can click Login. And when I click Login, it will automatically direct me to my timesheet. Michael has been so gracious enough to automatically create this link for you. So it will automatically navigate you directly into your timesheet. Also, the accounting team was very nice, and they had us set up all your favorites for you as of what you had charged for the 7/15 timesheet period. So when you log in for the first time, you'll see what you had charged for your project on your timesheet. So this is what the new timesheet looks like. It's kind of similar. It's a little bit different in some aspects, but a lot of the information is exactly the same. So let's take a look at how it actually looks and compares to the old timesheet. Up at the top, you'll notice we have two tabs. The basic information tab is the tab that you're going to want to stay on to do your timesheet. You have the revision explanation tab, which allows you to put in explanations for why you made changes to your timesheet. We'll come back to this tab shortly, but initially we're going to stay on this basic information tab. Looking at the header section of this timesheet, up here at the top, we have our employee name, my employee ID, the frequency of our timesheet, which is semi-monthly, and the period end date. So as you can see, this is for the 1st through the 15th of August. You'll also notice that the status says open. Even though I don't have anything on my timesheet, there's still it's always going to come into an open status. So anytime I open up my timesheet, it'll change it from missing to open, regardless if I've saved anything. So this is how we're going to know as we go through this go live process if you've been able to log in successfully to see your timesheet or not. If your timesheet is in a missing status, that tells us you haven't been able to get into the system. If it's in an open status, that's a confirmation to us that you've actually been able to get in. You still have your signed status just like you do in the old system. You still have the approved status. You still have the processed, meaning they've exported the timesheets into the accounting system, as well as the rejected status if your timesheet has been rejected. One of the biggest changes
The conference is in lecture mode.
One of the biggest changes that you'll notice is that the signature and the approval are now moved from the bottom of the timesheet up to the top of the timesheet. We're going to talk about the signature a little bit later when we go to complete this timesheet. If you notice, I already have my favorite in here for my GNA charge code. This is very similar to the old accounting system. I'm going to expand this a little bit more for you by clicking on the window and dragging it back and forth. I can do it on the side here. I can do it down here at the bottom, up and down if I want to change the way the timesheet looks. So I'm going to expand this over to the right. Let's take a look at our first line. This auto-populated from our charge favorites. So my favorite said for every timesheet I open, I want this charge code to automatically populate. That's why it's on my timesheet, and I haven't had to do anything. Again, we've loaded these from the 7/15 timesheet period. I did not load your PTO and your holiday, only your charge code that you charge to on a daily basis. So if I wanted to enter my time for today, just like I would in the old system, I would come over to the cell for that specific line, and I would put in my hours for the day. I can then click out of the cell, and the biggest difference is up here at the top, there's two different save options. One says save, the other one is save and continue. Save and continue, what this does is it will save your timesheet and keep you on the current timesheet that you're working. For example, if you had to navigate back to a previous timesheet, you can do so by utilizing the arrows up here. Since this is our first timesheet and this is my first timesheet, I don't have this option to navigate back and forth. But if I had to navigate back, I could use this arrow, make my changes if I needed to, and if I clicked save, it would take me back to the current timesheet. But if I click save and continue, it'll keep me on that older timesheet. So I recommend anytime you're working within the timesheet system, always use save and continue. So I'm going to click save and continue. Record modifications successfully completed. So this tells me that it saved my timesheet. Well, you know what? I need to add a new charge code to my timesheet. I'm going to take PTO, for example. So how do I do that? In the old system, you would just be able to click on the line below and select your charge code. And at that point in time, you could pick it and start charging it. Well, since the new time and expense system is on a completely different platform, it's more of a tabled database, so you actually have to build that table in order to add that new line. And you do that by clicking on the new button here on the blue timesheet lines. Don't click the new button up at the top. This will create a whole new timesheet in its own. So this will try to create the 831 timesheet if I click this button. So don't click the one up at the timesheet section. Click the new button that is on the blue timesheet lines. So I'll click new. And now I have the option to either type in my project. I can use the magnifying glass here to find my project. and drill down just like I did in time and expense 9. So for this example, I'm going to drill down to, let's go pick an overhead code. So I'm going to pick my overhead code, my IDSI site, and that code then populates. I'll then come back over to today's date. I can't charge my time in the future. That is in violation of DCAA policy. So I'm going to charge my time for today for my time that I worked on overhead. Again, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to save and continue. Now my timesheet's been saved again. Let's add a new line for PTO or vacation. So I'm going to hit the magnifying glass right here. I'm going to click on indirect because it's not a direct charge. I'm going to click on my leave code, and then I can pick whatever type of leave I need to charge. Let's say we're going to use jury duty. Well, instead of selecting it, maybe I already know what that code is. Well, I have the ability to actually start typing it, and I'll get a drop down of the charge codes that are available based on the characters I entered into my project field. So I'm going to select jury duty. Well, I know I have jury duty for tomorrow and Friday. So because this is a leave code, I have the ability to charge this in the future. So I'm going to save and continue. Now my timesheet's been updated. If I wanted to, let's pretend now that it's the end of the pay period and it's ready for me to sign. All I need to do is come up to the top here and click on the sign button. When I click the sign button and click OK, it's giving me a warning. It tells me here that my timesheet has less than the recommended minimum regular hours for the period. So what the system is doing is it's saying, well, I'm expecting 8 hours a day, and it calculates how many hours are in the pay period. And if you're short, then it's going to give you a warning. Now, there's two types of
The conference is
notification.
no longer in lecture mode.
A warning is only a heads up and a notification. So if you see this, maybe you want to double check your timesheet. An error will come up red with a exclamation point as well, and it will tell you that you can't save your timesheet because it's an error. And it'll give you an exact link of what that error is. I'll try to recreate that for you here in a moment. So for this example, I'm going to click OK. As soon as I did that, it signed my timesheet, and it has the actual date and timestamp of when I signed my timesheet. This is a new feature in Time and Expense 10 that physically shows you on the signature line versus the old system you had to hover over your signature to see it. So now it's actually visible. At this point in time, I should be done with my timesheet. But you know what? I need to make a change. I shouldn't have charged jury duty for Friday. I should have charged PTO for Friday or administrative leave. Let's do PTO. Let's see what we get. So I'm going to click New. It generates a new line, even though my timesheet's signed. I have the ability to modify this up until it's processed. So I'm going to type in my leave code here, and I'm going to choose PTO. I'm going to put this for 8 hours, and I'm going to zero out my time for jury duty on Friday. Now I'm going to click Save and Continue. I just received an error. Here's that error I was talking about. It tells me that an explanation or a rejection reason is required. Well, I made a change to a timesheet that's already had been saved and already had been signed. If I make a change to my time for a prior day and not have yet signed my timesheet, it's still going to ask me for an explanation. So you'll see this if you ever make a change to a prior day on your on a saved timesheet. So I have two choices here. I can go to the revision explanation field and type it in, or I can click on the link itself and it'll automatically tell me what I need to update. So whenever you're putting in an explanation or a rejection, please do not do this. Please do not put made a change. We know you made a change. The whole purpose of this is to provide an explicit explanation of why we are truly making this change. This helps out whenever we're audited by DCAA, or maybe at the end of the year when we're going through a fiscal year-end audit and the auditors want to know why we made a correction. A valid explanation goes a long way so that the accounting team doesn't have to come back to you and ask you, well, why did we actually make this change? Why did you do that? By putting it in this field with a clear explanation, we don't even have to reach out. We already know. So I'm going to put this in mistakenly charged to jury duty and took PTO instead, correcting accordingly. Once I've entered in my explanation, I'll come back to the Save and Continue option, and my timesheet is now saved. Now, I don't know if you remember that warning that we received that said, I was short hours on my timesheet. As soon as I received that warning, it created this new tab that says Warnings. I click on this tab, and it tells me the timesheet has less than minimum hours, minimum regular hours. So in Time and Expense 9, you wouldn't have this tab that saves the warnings and the errors that you receive, or excuse me, only the warnings that you received. In 10, you now have this feature so supervisors will be able to see this when they're reviewing your timesheet. You will also have something to go back to if you ever need to reach out to the accounting team as to why you saw this message or what does this truly mean. You'll be able to come into this tab and take the screenshot and send it over. All right, so I've made all the changes to my timesheet. Now I'm going to re-sign. Actually, before I re-sign this, I want to put a comment in. Just like Time and Expense 9, we have these little notepads here in each one of these cells. This is a great opportunity for you to communicate between you and your supervisor and the accounting team. No one else will see these. This is strictly internal. If you decide to utilize a comment, maybe you were short hours for the pay period and you had worked something out with your supervisor that was okay, put a comment into that cell for why you were short hours for that day. Or maybe you had only worked 6 hours and you put down had a doctor's appointment. If I click OK and I click out of this cell, that note stays with that cell. So now I can effectively communicate with my supervisor and the accounting team on why I'm doing what I'm doing on my timesheet. It's a wonderful feature that's rarely used, that very easily could be used more. So now that we've gone over the cell and we've gone over adding new lines to our timesheet, let me show you how to save something to your favorites and how to maintain your favorites. So I'm going to save and continue this. I changed my timesheet. It's asking me for an explanation. I'm going to put in here, added a comment for 8-3. Save and continue. Now, I want to add PTO to automatically populate on my timesheet going forward. And I want to save it as a favorite. I have a couple choices here. Let me back up. The easiest way to do this is to highlight the line and click Add Line to Favorites. As soon as I've done that, I can come up to my Charge Favorites link, and now I'll see PTO as a charge code sitting in my favorites. If I want that code to automatically populate on my next timesheet, I can check the box for load. The work percentage is not important. You don't need to put anything in here. This is if we were doing automatic timesheets, which is completely in violation of DCAA. So we don't have that feature turned on. We're not doing automatic timesheets. So all you need to do is check the load box. We'll save and continue. Oh, I didn't mark it as a vacation, did I? Vacation. I marked PTO as a vacation day. Save and continue. And now my favorites have been saved, and these will auto-populate for the next time I go to do my timesheet. When I'm done with a charge code, I can simply click on the code and delete it from my favorites, save and continue, and that will no longer populate. So when your project comes to an end and you need to remove it from your favorites, you simply go to favorites, find it, click on the cell, the whole entire line, click delete and save it, and it will disappear. Now I'm going to go back and re-sign my timesheet. By signing this timesheet, I'm certifying that the hours were incurred on the charge and day specified in accordance with company policies and procedures. Okay. It no longer asks me for a password. I have to click the validation of the certifying that my hours are true and accurate. It's giving me my warning that I have less hours for the pay period. That is okay. And my timesheet has been successfully saved and signed. At this point in time, I'm done. Now it goes off to my supervisor. My supervisor is going to receive a notification to approve the timesheets. Any questions on entering time?
That seems pretty straightforward.
Wonderful. There are two additional things or three additional things, new, not necessarily new features, but features that aren't typically used very often that I want to show you really quickly. One is a new feature. The new feature is a pay type summary. If you want to see how your hours are broken out by your pay types, you can click on the pay type summary link and it'll bring up a summary of the different pay types that you had used. You probably will never use this, but I want to show it to you because it is available. Revision audit. If you want to know the audit trail of your timesheet, you can come in here and see what changes were made. This is how the accounting team knows why you made those changes. This gives them the history of what you did and what you added. So this is how we already know you changed it from 8 to 0 and added it to the pay time off code. So made a change doesn't help. That's why the description of why you're making that change is so important. The next thing is the leave option. This feature probably won't be turned on until we actually go live in the new accounting system, but this will give you your real-time PTO balance.
Yeah, we're not going to use that at this time.
Oh, yes, thank you.
We may look at turning that on in the new year. But,
that's right. Thank
yeah,
you, Michael. I appreciate that. That's a feature that'll be used later. As of now, we can't disable this button. It will be there, but if you click it, nothing will show up. And that's pretty much it for the timesheet on the employee level. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I just have a question. How do we know how much PTO time that we've accrued, please?
We track that the same way we've always done it with the spreadsheets that Karen Marrero sends out. And we keep a track of that based on what you enter on your timesheet lines. But for your tracking, you just use that spreadsheet she sends out every year.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I have a quick question. Why doesn't the system keep track of that if it can keep track of the time you're requesting off?
That's a later
That's
implementation.
because of the way that we allocate PTO. The system can't really deal with it. We do it a very strange way here, which is part of the reason why we're probably not going to do that until the new year, because then we'll have time to reevaluate how we're doing it, decide if we want to change it, and what the best way is, and we can have a clean cutoff at the end of the year. So it's the same in T&E 9. I mean, this is not a difference. Just like in the old one, you can request, but it does not actually correlate directly to leave.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, then we'll move on to how to approve timesheets.
This is just for supervisors.